She sold her only daughter to a wealthy woman who couldn't have children, but what happened years later left everyone in shock. Hello and welcome. Feel free to subscribe, and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Clara, a single mother, had fought for every moment. She was only 25 when her husband David died suddenly in a factory accident, leaving her alone to raise their 3-year-old daughter, Vivian. The accident happened on a rainy Tuesday morning. David had kissed Clara goodbye and promised little Vivian a chocolate bar when he returned from work, but he never came back. 3 months later, Clara sat in their tiny kitchen, bills scattered across the table. Electricity, water, rent notices, all screaming the same thing. Pay now, or lose everything. Clara counted the money in her purse for the 10th time that day. $3.37. That was all she had left. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Vivian said softly from the doorway. Her little dress was getting too small, and her shoes had holes. Clara felt her heart shatter. She opened the kitchen cabinets, but they were empty. She checked the fridge. Nothing there either. "Come here, sweetheart," Clara said, forcing a smile. She pulled Vivian onto her lap and hugged her tightly. "We'll figure something out." But deep down, Clara didn't know what to do. She had looked for work everywhere. She had asked neighbors for help. She even went to the church, but they had no money to give. The landlord, Mr. Johnson, had been knocking on their door every day for a week. Each time his voice grew louder and angrier. "Clara!" he had shouted yesterday. "You've got 3 days to pay me $800, or you and that little girl will be sleeping on the street." Clara had closed the door and cried quietly in the bathroom so Vivian wouldn't see her tears. That night, after tucking Vivian into bed, Clara sat at the kitchen table staring at the bills. No money for food, no money for rent, no money for anything. She picked up the photo of David on the table. In it, he was smiling, holding baby Vivian in his arms. "David," she whispered to the picture, "I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. I can't take care of our little girl. I'm failing her every day." The next morning, Clara woke to a knock at the door. Her heart leapt. Was it Mr. Johnson coming to throw them out? She opened the door slowly and saw a woman she'd never met before. The woman wore expensive clothes and jewelry that sparkled in the sunlight. She flashed a wide smile, but something in her eyes made Clara uneasy. "Hello," the woman said in a smooth voice. "I'm Stella Williams. I've heard about your situation. May I come in? I think I can help you." Clara glanced at the luxury car parked outside, then at her empty kitchen. She had nothing to lose. "Please, come in," Clara said, opening the door wider. Vivian peeked out from behind Clara's leg, curious about the pretty lady in the shiny dress. "And this must be Vivian," Stella said, bending down to look at the little girl. "She's even more beautiful than I heard." Clara felt a strange twist in her stomach at Stella's words. How did this woman know about Vivian? And what did she mean by "more beautiful than I heard"? "Please, have a seat," Clara said, clearing bills off their only chair. "Can I get you some water?" It was all she had to offer. "No, thank you," Stella said, sitting carefully. She scanned the bare apartment. "Clara, I know you've been struggling since your husband's death. I know you can't pay your bills or feed your daughter." Clara's cheeks burned with shame. "How do you know about my problems?" she asked. Stella smiled. "In a town like this, news travels fast, especially about a young mother trying so hard to care for her child." Vivian walked up to Stella, fascinated by her shiny jewelry. "Hello, little princess," Stella said to Vivian. "Do you like my necklace?" Vivian nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. She'd never seen anything so shiny and beautiful. Stella reached into her bag and pulled out a small chocolate bar. "This is for you, sweetie." Vivian looked at her mother for permission. Clara nodded, and Vivian took the candy with a big smile. "Thank you, pretty lady," Vivian said, unwrapping it quickly. She was so hungry she ate it in 3 big bites. Stella watched Vivian eat and smiled, but Clara noticed the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Clara," Stella said, turning back to her, "I have something very important to tell you. Something that could change your lives forever." Clara's hands began to tremble without knowing why. "What do you mean?" Stella leaned forward and spoke softly. "I'm a very wealthy woman, but God hasn't blessed me with children. My husband and I have been trying for 15 years, but we can't have them." Clara nodded, unsure where this was going. I've been watching your daughter, Stella continued. She's smart, beautiful, and well-mannered. She deserves so much better than this. Stella gestured at the empty apartment. Clara bristled. We may be poor, but Vivian is loved. That's what matters. Of course she's loved, Stella said quickly. But love doesn't feed her, does it? Love doesn't pay for school, clothes, or medicine when she's sick. Clara looked at Vivian, playing on the floor with an empty box for lack of real toys. What are you trying to say? Clara asked, though part of her already knew. Stella took a deep breath. I want to adopt Vivian. I want to give her everything she needs. Food, clothes, an education, a big house, and a bright future. And I want to give you enough money to start a new life. The words hit Clara like a punch to the stomach. She felt dizzy and sick. No, she whispered. No, you can't have my daughter. Think about it, Clara, Stella said softly. Right now, you can't even feed her. In 3 days, you'll both be homeless. What kind of life is that for a little girl? Clara looked at Vivian again. The little girl was so thin, her clothes so worn. Clara couldn't remember the last time Vivian had laughed like other children. I can give her the best schools, Stella continued. She'll have her own room, her own toys, beautiful clothes. She'll never go hungry again. She'll have opportunities you could never give her. But she's my daughter, Clara said, tears in her eyes. She's all I have left of David. I know it's hard, Stella said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out an envelope stuffed with cash. This is $50,000. It's enough to pay all your bills, find a nice place to live, and start over. Clara stared at the envelope. She'd never seen so much money in her life. It could solve all her problems. But the price... I need time to think, she said weakly. Of course, Stella said, standing. But don't forget, Mr. Johnson will be back tomorrow. What will happen to Vivian when you're both living on the street? Stella walked to the door and turned back. I'll come back tomorrow morning for your answer, Clara. I hope you make the right choice. For Vivian's sake. After Stella left, Clara sat on the floor and held Vivian tightly. Mommy. Who was that pretty lady? Vivian asked. Just someone who wanted to meet you, Clara said, her voice shaking. She was nice. She gave me candy, Vivian said happily. Clara hugged her daughter closer and whispered, I love you so much, Vivian. More than anything in the world. I love you too, Mommy, Vivian said, snuggling against her. That night, Clara didn't sleep at all. She sat by Vivian's bed watching her daughter sleep peacefully, unaware that tomorrow would change their lives forever. The next morning, Clara woke to loud banging on the door. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Clara, open this door right now. It was Mr. Johnson's angry voice. Clara glanced at the clock. It was only 7 a.m. She quickly woke Vivian and told her to stay quiet. When Clara opened the door, Mr. Johnson stood there with 2 burly men behind him. Time's up, Clara, he said with a mean smile. Where's my money? Clara's hands shook. Please, Mr. Johnson, give me 1 more day. I'm expecting money today. Mr. Johnson laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. I've heard that story too many times. Boys, start moving their stuff out. No, please, Clara begged, falling to her knees. My daughter. She's just a little girl. Where will we go? That's not my problem, Mr. Johnson said coldly. You should have thought of that before. The 2 men began grabbing Clara's few belongings. Old clothes, Vivian's broken toys, David's photo. Vivian started crying. Mommy, what's happening? Why are the men taking our stuff? Clara hugged Vivian tightly, trying to be strong for her daughter, but inside, she was breaking. Just then, they heard a car pull up outside. It was Stella's shiny luxury car. Stella stepped out, dressed in another expensive outfit, and walked to the door like a queen. Seeing what was happening, she smiled. Good morning, Clara, she said softly. I see you're having some trouble. Mr. Johnson eyed Stella's clothes and jewelry. Who are you, lady? I'm a friend of Clara's, Stella said, pulling out her thick envelope of cash. How much does she owe you? Mr. Johnson's eyes widened at the sight of the money. $800 in rent, plus $200 for damages, $1,000 total. Stella counted out the money like it was nothing. Here, and here's an extra $200 for your trouble. Mr. Johnson took the money and counted it twice. All right, Clara can stay, he said with a big grin. Sorry for the mix-up, ladies. The two men put Clara's things back inside, and Mr. Johnson left quickly with his money. Clara stared at Stella, stunned. Why did you do that? Because I care about you and Vivian, Stella said. But Clara, this is just a bandage on a broken bone. What happens next month when the rent is due again? What happens when Vivian gets sick and needs a doctor? Clara knew Stella was right. The problems would keep coming. Mommy, the pretty lady saved us, Vivian said, running to hug Stella's legs. Stella bent down and picked Vivian up. Good morning, beautiful princess. Did you sleep well? Yes, and I dreamed of candy and toys in a big house, Vivian said happily. Stella gave Clara a knowing look. Dreams can come true, you know. Clara's stomach twisted. She knew what Stella was doing. Vivian, go play in your room for a minute, Clara said. Mommy needs to talk to the nice lady. After Vivian left, Stella sat at the table. Clara, I paid your rent, but that money came from the envelope I offered you yesterday. There's only $49,000 left now. Clara's heart sank. She hadn't even agreed to anything yet, and she already owed Stella money. I didn't ask you to pay my rent, Clara said weakly. I know, Stella said. I did it because I knew you needed help. But Clara, this is exactly what I was talking about. You can't fix these problems on your own. Clara glanced toward Vivian's room, where she heard her daughter singing a little song. If I did what you want, Clara said softly, would I ever see her again? Stella's face grew serious. Clara, if you truly love Vivian, you'll let her go completely. It would be too confusing for a child to have two mothers. She needs to feel secure in her new life. So I'd lose her forever? Clara asked, tears in her eyes. You wouldn't lose her, Stella said gently. You'd be giving her the greatest gift a mother can give, a wonderful life. Clara put her head in her hands and cried, I can't. She's my baby. She's all I have. Clara, look at me, Stella said firmly. What can you give her now? Can you feed her every day? Can you send her to school? Can you buy her medicine when she's sick? Can you give her a roof over her head? Each question stabbed Clara's heart because she knew the answer to all of them was no. But I love her so much, Clara whispered. I know you do, Stella said. And because you love her, you want what's best for her, don't you? Clara nodded, still crying. My husband and I have been trying to have a child for 15 years, Stella continued. We have so much love to give and so much to offer. Vivian would go to the best schools. She'd have everything she needs. She'd be happy. Clara heard Vivian laughing in the next room, but the laughter felt so far away. I need more time, Clara said. Of course, Stella said, standing. But Clara, I want you to think about something. Tonight, when Vivian goes to bed hungry again, ask yourself, is keeping her with you really what's best for her? Or is it to make you feel better? Those words hit Clara like a punch. Was she being selfish? Was she putting her own feelings before her daughter's needs? After Stella left, Clara sat alone in the kitchen. The $1,000 for rent was gone, but all the other bills were still on the table. Electricity, water, groceries, all demanding money. Clara opened the fridge, still empty. She checked the cabinets, still empty. She looked in her purse. No money left. Mommy, can we have lunch? Vivian asked, walking into the kitchen. Clara's heart broke again. We don't have anything to eat right now, sweetie, but maybe later. Vivian's face fell. I'm hungry, Mommy. My tummy hurts. Clara knelt and hugged Vivian tightly. I know, sweetie. Mommy's trying to figure something out. That afternoon, Clara took Vivian to the park to distract her from her hunger. They sat under a tree and watched other children play. Clara noticed how thin Vivian had become. Her clothes hung loosely on her small body. Other kids in the park had nice clothes, good shoes, and toys. Their mothers brought them snacks and drinks. Clara had nothing to offer her daughter but love. And for the first time, she wondered if love was enough. Mommy, look at that little girl. Vivian said, pointing to a child her age on the swings. The girl wore a pretty pink dress and new shoes. Her mother was pushing her, and they were both laughing. "She's pretty," Clara said sadly. "I wish I had a dress like that," Vivian said softly. "And shoes, without holes." Clara felt like her heart was being squeezed. Her daughter was only 3, but she already knew they were different from other families. She already knew they had less. That evening, Clara scrounged up enough coins in their apartment to buy a small piece of bread. She gave it all to Vivian and watched her eat it slowly, trying to make it last. "Aren't you going to eat, Mommy?" Vivian asked. "I'm not hungry," Clara lied. Her stomach growled, but seeing Vivian eat was more important. After Vivian fell asleep, Clara sat by the window, staring at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Stella was in her big house with her husband, waiting for Clara's answer. Clara picked up David's photo and whispered, "What should I do? What do you want me to do?" But David couldn't answer. Clara was alone with the hardest decision a mother could ever make. Tomorrow she'd have to choose. Keep her daughter and lose everything, or give her up to have it all. The next morning, Clara woke to Vivian coughing. When she touched her daughter's forehead, it was burning with fever. "Mommy, I don't feel good," Vivian said weakly. Her little voice was hoarse and her eyes looked tired. Clara's heart raced. Vivian was sick, and Clara had no money for a doctor or medicine. She held Vivian close, feeling the heat from her small body. "It's okay, sweetie. Mommy will take care of you," Clara said, trying not to panic. Clara gave Vivian water and tried to cool her down with a damp cloth, but as the hours passed, Vivian's condition worsened. She shivered despite the heat and couldn't keep anything down. "Mommy, my throat hurts," Vivian whispered, tears in her eyes. Clara knew she had to get Vivian to a hospital, but she had no money. She searched every drawer, every pocket, every corner of their apartment. She found $2.15. It wasn't enough. Clara wrapped Vivian in a blanket and carried her to the free clinic across town. They waited in a long line with other poor families who couldn't afford care either. When their turn finally came, the nurse looked at Vivian and shook her head. "This child is very sick," she said. "She needs medicine right away, and she needs to see a real doctor, not just the volunteer working here." "Please," Clara begged, "I'll pay you back somehow. My daughter is all I have." "I'm sorry," the nurse said sadly. "I wish I could help, but we don't have the medicine she needs here. You need to take her to the big hospital." Clara carried Vivian to the big downtown hospital. The building was huge and clean, with shiny floors and doctors and nurses rushing around. At the front desk, a woman in a white coat asked, "Do you have insurance?" Clara shook her head. "Can you pay for today's visit?" I only have $2, Clara admitted, ashamed. The woman's face turned cold. "I'm sorry, but we don't see patients who can't pay. There's a charity clinic about 10 miles from here. You can try there." "But my daughter is very sick," Clara said, her voice breaking. "Please, just look at her." "I'm sorry, that's our policy," the woman said, already looking at the next person. Clara stood there, holding Vivian, feeling utterly helpless. Around her, she saw other families who could pay. Their children got help while her daughter suffered. Clara carried Vivian outside and sat on the hospital steps, not knowing what to do. Vivian was getting sicker, and Clara couldn't help her. "Mommy, I'm scared," Vivian whispered, clutching Clara's shirt with her small hands. "Don't be scared, sweetie," Clara said. "Mommy's here." But she was terrified too. Just then, Clara's phone rang. It was Stella. "Hello, Clara. I was wondering if you'd made your decision," Stella said in her smooth voice. Clara looked down at Vivian, so sick and weak in her arms. "Stella," Clara said, her voice trembling. "Vivian is very sick. She has a high fever and needs medicine, but I can't afford to take her to a doctor." There was a moment of silence. Then Stella said, "Oh my goodness. Where are you right now?" "At the big downtown hospital, but they won't see her because I can't pay." "Stay there," Stella said firmly. "I'm coming to get you both." 20 minutes later, Stella's luxury car pulled up in front of the hospital. She got out and ran to Clara and Vivian. "Let me see her," Stella said, touching Vivian's forehead. "She's burning up. We need to get her help right away." Stella carried Vivian into the hospital, and suddenly everything changed. When the receptionist saw Stella's expensive clothes and jewelry, she smiled widely. "How can I help you today, ma'am?" "This child needs to see the best doctor you have right now," Stella said, pulling out her credit card. "Money is no object." "Of course, right this way," the receptionist said. Within minutes, Vivian was in a clean, comfortable room, being examined by a kind doctor. The doctor gave her medicine for her fever and sore throat. Nurses brought her juice and crackers. "She'll be fine," the doctor told Stella. "The medicine should help her feel better in a day or two. Just make sure she rests and drinks plenty." Clara watched it all happen like a dream. In minutes, Stella had accomplished what Clara couldn't after hours of trying. After leaving the hospital, Stella drove them back to Clara's apartment. Vivian was already feeling a little better from the medicine. "Thank you," Clara said softly as they sat in the car. "I don't know how to thank you." Stella looked at Clara with kind eyes. "Clara, don't you see? If Vivian were my daughter, you'd never have to worry about moments like this. She'd have the best health care, the best doctors, the best of everything." Clara felt tears well up. "I know. And what if this happens again next month or next week?" Stella asked gently. "What if next time it's more serious and you can't find me to help?" Clara looked at Vivian, sleeping peacefully in the back seat, finally comfortable and safe. "I see how much you love her," Stella continued. "But sometimes love means making the hardest choice. Sometimes love means letting go." That night, after Clara tucked Vivian into bed with her new medicine, she sat at the kitchen table, all the bills spread out before her. But now there was also the hospital bill, $800 that Stella had paid. Clara realized that in just 2 days, Stella had spent over $1,800 on them. Money Clara could never repay. Money that showed just how helpless Clara was. She thought back to what happened at the hospital. How quickly everything changed when Stella walked in. How easily Stella could give Vivian what she needed while Clara could only watch. Powerless. Clara looked at Vivian, sleeping peacefully now that her fever had gone down. She looked so small and fragile in her little bed. "I love you so much," Clara whispered. "More than my own life. But maybe that's not enough anymore." The next morning, Vivian woke up feeling much better. The medicine had worked, and her fever was gone. "Mommy, I feel good today," she said, smiling. "Can we go to the park?" "Later, my love," Clara said, trying to smile back. "First, Mommy needs to make a phone call." Clara's hands shook as she dialed Stella's number. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done in her life. "Hello, Clara," Stella answered. "How's Vivian today?" "She's better, thank you. The medicine worked." "I'm so glad to hear that." Clara took a deep breath. "Stella, I have something to ask you." "Of course. What is it?" If I let you adopt Vivian," Clara's voice broke and she had to start again. "If I let you take her, will you promise to love her like your own daughter? Will you promise to take good care of her?" There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Clara," Stella said softly, "I promise that Vivian will be loved, protected, and given every chance to have a wonderful life. She'll want for nothing." Clara closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. "And you promise I'll never see her again?" "It would be too complicated for her," Stella said gently. "She needs to feel secure in her new life." "But Clara, you'll always be her biological mother. Nothing can ever change that." Clara looked toward Vivian's room, where her daughter was playing happily, unaware that her world was about to change. When do you want to take her?" Clara asked, barely able to get the words out. "Today," Stella said softly. "I think it's better to do it quickly, so it's not harder for either of you." Clara's heart raced. "But I'm not ready. I need more time to prepare her, to explain." "Clara, this isn't easy," Stella said. "The longer you wait, the harder it will be. And I have everything ready for her. A beautiful room, clothes, toys, everything a little girl could dream of." Clara felt like she couldn't breathe. Everything was happening so fast. "I'll come by this afternoon," Stella said. "At 3. And Clara, You're doing the right thing. You're a good mother." After hanging up, Clara sat on the floor and cried harder than she ever had. In a few hours, she'd have to say goodbye to her daughter forever. Clara spent the next few hours trying to figure out how to tell Vivian. How do you explain to a small child that you're giving them to someone else? How do you make them understand it's because you love them, not because you don't want them? At noon, Clara sat with Vivian on their little couch. "Vivian, sweetheart, Mommy needs to talk to you about something very important," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Okay, Mommy," Vivian said, looking up with her big, trusting eyes. "You remember the pretty lady who gave you candy and helped you when you were sick?" "Yes, Miss Stella, she's really nice." Clara's heart broke, but she kept going. "Miss Stella has a big, beautiful house with lots of toys and good food, and she wants you to come live with her." Vivian looked confused. "But I live with you, Mommy." "I know, sweetie, but Miss Stella can give you things Mommy can't. She can send you to school, buy you pretty dresses, and make sure you're never hungry again." "But I want to stay with you," Vivian said, looking worried. "You're my mommy." Clara pulled Vivian onto her lap and hugged her tightly. "I'll always be your mommy, Vivian. Nothing will ever change that. But sometimes, mommies have to make really hard choices to help their children." "I don't understand," Vivian said, tears welling in her eyes. "Miss Stella will take good care of you. She has lots of money to buy you everything you need, and she'll love you very much." "What about you?" Vivian asked. "Who's going to take care of you?" Clara nearly broke down right there. Her 3-year-old daughter was worried about taking care of her. "Mommy will be fine," Clara lied. "I just want you to be happy and healthy." "Can I visit you?" Vivian asked. Clara closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. "Sweetie, when you go live with Miss Stella, that'll be your new home. You'll have a new life there forever." Vivian's voice was small and scared. "I don't want to go." Clara couldn't speak. She just nodded and hugged Vivian tighter. "No," Vivian said, starting to cry. "I don't want to leave. I want to stay with you. I don't care if we're poor. I don't care if we don't have food. I just want my mommy." Clara was crying too. "Oh, baby, I want you to stay too, more than anything in the world. But I can't give you what you need. What if you get sick again, and I can't help you?" "I don't care," Vivian sobbed. "I just want you." They held each other and cried until there were no tears left. At exactly 3 p.m., they heard Stella's car pull up outside. Clara's whole body began to tremble. "It's her," Vivian whispered, clinging to Clara. "Yes, baby," Clara said. When Stella knocked on the door, Clara and Vivian stayed seated, wrapped in each other's arms. "Clara, it's me," Stella called softly. Clara finally stood and opened the door. Stella was there, smiling broadly, holding a beautiful new doll and a bag of clothes. "Hello, Vivian," Stella said in a cheerful voice. "I brought you some presents." But Vivian hid behind Clara's legs, refusing to look at Stella. "She's a little scared," Clara said softly. "That's okay," Stella said, stepping inside. "Vivian, sweetie, look what I have for you." She showed Vivian the doll. It was the most beautiful doll Vivian had ever seen, with long curly hair and a pretty dress. "And look," Stella said, opening the bag. "I brought you new clothes. See this dress? It's just your size." Despite her fear, Vivian couldn't help but look at the pretty things. She'd never owned anything so nice. "Do you like them?" Stella asked gently. Vivian nodded slightly but still clung to Clara. "Clara, have you packed her things?" Stella asked. Clara looked around their tiny apartment. What things? Vivian's few worn-out clothes, her broken toys, there was nothing worth taking. "She doesn't have much," Clara said, embarrassed. "That's all right," Stella said kindly. "She won't need those old things anyway. I have everything she needs at home." Clara felt like Stella had just said her entire life with Vivian didn't matter, that nothing they'd shared was worth keeping. "But what about my teddy bear?" Vivian asked suddenly. She was talking about an old stuffed bear David had bought her when she was a baby. It was falling apart, but it was Vivian's most precious possession. Stella looked at the dirty, worn bear and grimaced. "Oh, sweetie, I have much better toys for you at home. You don't need that old thing." But it's from my daddy, Vivian said, clutching the bear tightly. Clara saw Stella's expression and realized something terrible. Stella didn't just want to give Vivian a better life. She wanted to erase her old life completely. She can keep the bear, Clara said firmly. It's important to her. Stella smiled, but her eyes were cold. Of course, if it makes the transition easier. She held out her hand. Are you ready, Vivian? Vivian looked up at Clara, panicked. Mommy, I changed my mind. I don't want to go. Please don't make me go. Clara knelt and took Vivian's small hands in hers. Baby, I need you to be very brave for Mommy, okay? You're going to have a wonderful life with Miss Stella. You'll go to school, make friends, have toys and pretty clothes. But you'll miss me so much, Vivian cried. You'll miss me too, Clara whispered. Every single day. But I want you to remember that Mommy loves you more than all the stars in the sky. Do you remember that? I love you more than all the stars in the sky, Mommy, Vivian said. Clara kissed Vivian's forehead and stood quickly before she lost her nerve. Take good care of her, she said to Stella, her voice breaking. She's the most precious thing in the world. I will, Stella promised, taking Vivian's hand. Vivian looked at Clara one last time. Mommy, are you sure I can't stay? Clara wanted to scream, stay with me. But instead she said, go on, sweetie. Be good for Miss Stella. Stella picked Vivian up and headed for the door. Vivian reached for Clara over Stella's shoulder. Mommy! Mommy! She cried. Clara followed them to the car, tears streaming down her face. Stella buckled Vivian into the back seat. Through the window, Vivian pressed her small hand against the glass. Clara placed her hand on the other side, trying to touch her daughter one last time. I love you, Vivian, Clara said. I love you too, Mommy, Vivian said, still crying. Stella got into the driver's seat and started the car. As it pulled away, Clara ran after it for a few steps but couldn't keep up. She stood in the middle of the street, watching the car disappear around the corner, taking her daughter away forever. Clara returned to her empty apartment and closed the door behind her. The silence was deafening. For the first time in 3 years, she was completely alone. She picked up Vivian's old dress from the floor and held it to her face. It still smelled like her baby. That night, Clara sat in Vivian's empty room and cried until she had no tears left. She had done what she thought was best for her daughter, but it felt like her heart had been ripped out. She had no idea that this was only the beginning of her suffering. She had no idea that the worst was yet to come. 2 weeks later, Clara couldn't take it anymore. She needed to see Vivian just to make sure she was okay. She took the bus across town to Stella's neighborhood, filled with big, beautiful houses with perfect lawns and luxury cars. When Clara found Stella's house, she couldn't believe her eyes. It looked like a palace with tall gates and guards. Clara hid behind a tree across the street and waited. After an hour, she saw Stella's car pull into the driveway. The gates opened automatically and Clara caught a glimpse inside. Vivian was there, but Clara barely recognized her. She wore a beautiful white dress and shiny shoes. Her hair was perfectly styled and she looked like a little princess. But something was wrong. Vivian didn't look happy. She wasn't smiling or playing. She just walked quietly beside Stella, like she was afraid to make noise. Clara wanted to run to her, hug her, and take her home, but she remembered her promise to stay away. The next day, Clara couldn't help herself. She went back to watch again. This time, she saw Vivian playing in the big yard, but she was alone. There were expensive toys all around her, but she sat quietly, clutching her old teddy bear. Clara's heart broke again. Her daughter had everything now, but she looked so lonely. For the next month, Clara watched Vivian every few days. She told herself it was just to make sure she was okay, but really, she needed to see her daughter to survive. One day, Clara was watching from her usual spot when Stella appeared beside her. I thought I'd find you here, Stella said coldly. Clara jumped, scared and surprised. I was just... You're spying on my daughter, Stella said, her voice like ice. She's my daughter, Clara said, summoning her courage. I just wanted to see how she's doing. She's doing fine. She's adjusting to her new life. But your lurking isn't helping her move on. Clara was angry. She's 3 years old. She doesn't understand why her mother gave her away. You didn't give her away, Stella said with a cruel smile. You sold her for money. Don't try to make yourself feel better by calling it something else. The words hit Clara like a slap. That's not what it was. I was trying to help her. And you were making things easier for yourself, weren't you? Clara stared at Stella, seeing her clearly for the first time. This woman wasn't kind. She wasn't just trying to help a child in need. She was cruel and manipulative. I want her back, Clara said suddenly. Stella laughed. You want her back? You can't just change your mind, Clara. We have a legal agreement. Vivian is mine now. I don't care about any agreement. She's unhappy. I can see it. She's adjusting. All children need time to get used to change. It's been 6 weeks, Clara said, her voice louder. She should be happy by now if this was really what's best for her. Lower your voice, Stella snapped. You're making a scene. I don't care. I want my daughter back. Stella's face grew deadly serious. Clara, let me make this clear. You signed papers giving up all your rights to that child. You took my money. If you try to cause trouble, I'll have you arrested for harassment. Clara was scared but didn't back down. You can't stop me from seeing my own daughter. Actually, I can, Stella said with a cold smile. I have connections in this town you can't even imagine. One phone call, and I could have you locked up for years. And then who would help your precious Vivian? Clara realized she'd made a terrible mistake. She hadn't just given her daughter to a rich family. She'd given her to a woman who would do anything to keep what she wanted. Get away from my house, Clara, Stella warned. Get away from my daughter. If I see you here again, you'll regret it. Stella walked back to her mansion, leaving Clara in the street, more helpless than ever. Clara returned to her empty apartment and faced the horrible truth. She had lost her daughter forever, and there was nothing she could do. Clara couldn't stay away. Even after Stella's warning, her heart wouldn't let her stop. She was a mother, and every cell in her body needed to know her child was okay. 3 days later, Clara went back to Stella's neighborhood, but this time she was more careful. She hid and watched from farther away. She saw Vivian again, still sad and quiet. The little girl sat on the porch with her teddy bear, not playing with the expensive toys around her. Clara's heart ached. She could see her daughter wasn't happy, despite all the money could buy. As Clara was about to leave, she heard sirens. 2 police cars pulled up on the street where she stood. Ma'am, we need you to come with us, one of the officers said, approaching Clara. What? Why? Clara asked, confused and scared. You're under arrest for harassment, the officer said, pulling out handcuffs. But I wasn't doing anything wrong, Clara protested. I was just walking on the street. Ma'am, we have a complaint from Mrs. Stella Williams. She says you've been stalking her house and threatening her family. Clara looked towards Stella's house and saw Stella standing at her window, watching with a satisfied smile. That's not true, Clara said desperately. She has my daughter. I gave her my daughter. But now I want her back. The officer looked at Clara like she was crazy. Ma'am, calm down. What you're saying doesn't make sense. Please listen to me, Clara begged as they handcuffed her. That woman took my daughter. I made a mistake, and now she won't let me see her. Ma'am, according to our records, you legally gave up your parental rights. The child belongs to Mrs. Williams now. As the police car drove away, Clara turned and saw Vivian come to the window. The little girl pressed her face against the glass, watching her mother being taken away. Clara was locked in a small, cold cell. She couldn't understand what was happening. How could watching her own child be illegal? The next day, a lawyer came to see Clara. But it wasn't a lawyer to help her. It was Stella's lawyer. Ms. Clara, the man said in a professional voice, my client, Mrs. Williams, is willing to drop the charges against you on one condition. What's that? Clara asked, hopeful. You must sign this document promising never to contact her or the child again. You must also agree to leave town within 24 hours. Clara stared at the paper. Leave town? But this is my home. This is where my husband is buried. This is where my daughter is. That child is no longer your concern, the lawyer said coldly. You made your choice when you took Mrs. Williams's money. I changed my mind. I want her back. The lawyer shook his head. That's not how it works. The adoption is final. Sign the paper, or Mrs. Williams will make sure you spend the next 20 years in prison. 20 years? For what? Harassment, threats, trespassing? Mrs. Williams has many influential friends in the justice system. She can make your life very difficult. Clara felt trapped. If she signed the paper, she'd never see Vivian again. But if she didn't sign, she could spend 20 years in prison and still never see Vivian. I need time to think, Clara said. You have 1 hour, the lawyer said, standing to leave. Clara sat alone in her cell, weighing her choices. Both options meant losing Vivian forever. But at least if she signed the paper, she'd be free. When the lawyer returned, Clara had her answer. I won't sign, she said firmly. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Mrs. Williams can be very persistent when she wants something. I'm sure. I won't promise to stay away from my own daughter. Very well, the lawyer said, gathering his papers. Don't say I didn't warn you. 2 weeks later, Clara stood in a courtroom. Stella was there with her expensive lawyer. Clara had no lawyer. She couldn't afford one. Your Honor, Stella's lawyer said, my client has been terrorized by this woman. Miss Clara refuses to accept that she legally gave up her parental rights. The judge looked at Clara sternly. Miss Clara, according to these documents, you voluntarily gave up your parental rights in exchange for money, and now you're harassing the family that legally adopted your child. Clara felt the world spinning around her. When the judge put it like that, it sounded awful. Due to your refusal to respect the legal adoption, the judge said, striking his gavel, I sentence you to 20 years in prison. 20 years? Clara gasped. But it was too late. Stella had used her money and power to destroy Clara's life, all because Clara dared to want her daughter back. 20 years later, Clara walked out of the prison gates. She was now 45, with gray streaks in her hair and sadness in her eyes. The city had completely changed. New buildings, new roads. Everything was different. Clara went to where her old apartment used to be, but it had been torn down. A fancy shopping mall stood in its place. She had nowhere to go, and no one to turn to. She had lost 20 years of her life because she loved her daughter too much. For weeks, Clara looked for work everywhere, but no one wanted to hire someone who'd spent 20 years in prison. Sorry, we can't hire you, managers would say after reviewing her application. We're looking for someone with recent work experience. Clara tried restaurants, stores, offices, factories. The answer was always the same. No. She was running out of the little money the prison had given her upon release. Soon she'd be homeless again, just like 20 years ago. One day, Clara saw a sign outside a shiny new office building. Cleaning staff wanted. Apply inside. Clara looked up at the towering building. It was the most impressive building she'd ever seen, with glass walls stretching to the clouds. The sign read, Williams Corporation. Clara had no idea it was the same company as Stella's family. She just needed a job. The lobby was stunning, with marble floors and elegant decor. Clara felt out of place in her cheap, worn clothes. Excuse me, Clara said to the receptionist. I saw the sign about the cleaning jobs. The receptionist looked Clara up and down, clearly judging her appearance. Human Resources is on the 15th floor. On the 15th floor, Clara met Mrs. Johnson, the woman in charge of hiring cleaners. Have you ever worked as a cleaner? Mrs. Johnson asked. Yes, ma'am, Clara said carefully, avoiding mentioning prison, where I was living for the past 20 years. Do you have any references? Clara shook her head sadly. No, ma'am, but I'm a hard worker. I'll do whatever you ask. Mrs. Johnson studied Clara. She saw desperation, but also honesty and determination. The pay is low, Mrs. Johnson explained. You'll work nights, cleaning offices after everyone goes home. It's hard work, and the hours are long. I'll take it, Clara said immediately. Thank you so much. You start tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Don't be late. That night, Clara spent her last few dollars on a cheap meal and a room in a boarding house. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. The next evening, Clara showed up for her first day of work. She was given a uniform, cleaning supplies, and a list of offices to clean. The building had multiple floors, each with several offices. Clara's job was to empty trash cans, vacuum carpets, clean windows, and dust furniture. As she worked, Clara looked at the family photos on people's desks. She saw pictures of parents with their children, and it broke her heart. Somewhere in this city, her own daughter was living her life without even remembering the mother who gave her up. Clara worked hard every night, staying late to make sure every office was spotless. She didn't talk much to the other cleaners. She just did her job and went home to her small room. Weeks passed, then months. Clara began to feel a little more stable. She had a job, a place to sleep, and enough money to eat. It wasn't much, but it was better than being homeless. One night, Clara was cleaning the executive floor when she heard the elevator doors open. It was unusual. Most people were already gone. Clara looked up from her cleaning and saw a young woman heading toward the largest office. She was a beautiful woman with long curly hair and a bright gaze, wearing an expensive suit and carrying a briefcase. "Oh, hello," the young woman said, seeing Clara. "I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone was still here." "I'm just the cleaner," Clara said softly, looking at the floor. "I can come back later if you need to work." No, please continue," the woman said with a warm smile. "I'm Vivian Williams. I'm the CEO here." Clara nodded politely. "I'm Clara, ma'am. I'll try not to disturb you." But as Clara continued cleaning, she couldn't help sneaking glances at this young woman named Vivian. There was something about her that made Clara feel at ease, even warm. Vivian worked at her desk for about an hour while Clara cleaned around her. Every now and then, Vivian looked up and smiled at Clara. "You're very thorough," Vivian said as Clara carefully dusted every surface. "Thank you for taking such good care of our offices." "It's my job, ma'am," Clara replied. But she felt a strange pang in her heart when Vivian thanked her. From that night on, Clara and Vivian began crossing paths regularly. Vivian often stayed late at the office, and Clara always worked nights. At first, they just greeted each other politely, but little by little, they started talking more. "How long have you worked here?" Vivian asked Clara one evening. "About 3 months, ma'am," Clara said. "Call me Vivian," the young woman said. "And thank you again for the great work you do. I notice how clean and organized everything is." Clara felt proud when Vivian complimented her. It had been so long since anyone had said a kind word to her. One night, as Clara was tidying Vivian's office, she noticed Vivian looked very tired and sad. "Are you okay, miss?" Clara asked softly, forgetting formality. Vivian looked up, surprised that the cleaner had noticed her mood. "Oh, I'm fine. It's just been a long day." But Clara could see Vivian wasn't fine. Something was bothering her. "Sometimes a cup of tea helps me feel better when I'm down," Clara said gently. "I could make you one if you'd like." Vivian's eyes filled with unexpected tears at this simple act of kindness. "That's so kind of you, Clara. I'd love that." Clara went to the office kitchen and made a cup of hot tea for Vivian. When she brought it back, Vivian took a sip and smiled. "This is perfect. Thank you so much." "You're welcome, miss. We all need someone to care about us sometimes." From that moment, something shifted between them. They both felt an inexplicable connection. Over the next few weeks, their conversations grew longer and more personal. "Clara, do you have any children?" Vivian asked one evening. Clara's heart ached, but she answered honestly, "I had a daughter, but I lost her many years ago." "I'm so sorry," Vivian said, and Clara heard deep sadness in her voice. "What happened to her?" I made a mistake when she was very young," Clara said, tears in her eyes. "I thought I was doing what was best for her, but I lost her forever." Vivian reached out and gently touched Clara's hand. "That must have been so painful for you." Clara was stunned by the gesture. No one had shown her such kindness in 20 years. Over the months, Clara and Vivian developed a beautiful friendship. Neither understood why they felt so drawn to each other, but they both looked forward to their evening talks. Clara began staying a little later each night, not because she had more cleaning to do, but because she loved talking to Vivian. And Vivian began working later each night, not because she had more work, but because she loved talking to Clara. "You know, Clara," Vivian said one evening, "talking to you is the best part of my day." "You're so wise and kind, miss," Clara replied. "Any mother would be proud to have a daughter like you." Neither realized they were describing the exact relationship they'd lost 20 years ago. Clara noticed that Vivian never spoke of her mother with love or warmth. She spoke of her with respect, but Clara could see there was no real affection. "My mother is a very successful businesswoman," Vivian would say. She gave me every opportunity to succeed. But when Vivian said it, she didn't sound happy. It sounded like she was reciting something she'd been taught to say. One evening, Clara brought Vivian a small potted plant for her desk. "I thought this might brighten your office," Clara said shyly. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "No one's ever given me a gift just to make me happy," she said. "Thank you so much, Clara. I'll treasure it." Clara was shocked. How could someone so rich and successful never have received a gift given out of pure love? "Everyone deserves to feel special sometimes," Clara said softly. That night, after Vivian went home, she sat at her desk, staring at the little plant, and felt something she'd never felt before. She felt truly loved by someone who expected nothing in return. And Clara went home feeling something she hadn't felt in 20 years. She felt like a mother again. Neither knew they were slowly healing their broken hearts. Neither knew they were rebuilding the bond stolen from them so long ago. But someone was watching their beautiful friendship grow. Someone ready to do anything to destroy it. 6 months after Clara was hired, Stella Williams decided to visit the company. She rarely came to the office, preferring to manage things from her mansion, but today she wanted to check on how Vivian was running the business. Stella walked into the building like she owned it, which she did. Her expensive heels clicked loudly on the marble floor as she headed to the elevator. "Good morning, Mrs. Williams," the receptionist said nervously. Everyone was always nervous when Stella came. "Is Vivian in her office?" Stella asked without returning the greeting. "Yes, ma'am. She's in a meeting, but it should be over soon." Stella took the elevator to the top floor, planning to surprise Vivian. When the doors opened, she stepped out and headed toward Vivian's office. But what she saw froze her in her tracks. Through the glass walls of Vivian's office, Stella saw her sitting at her desk, laughing and talking with someone. That someone was a cleaner in a simple uniform holding a coffee mug. Stella moved closer to see her face. When she did, her blood ran cold. It was Clara, the woman Stella had sent to prison 20 years ago. The woman who was supposed to be gone from their lives forever. Clara was sitting in her daughter's office, talking and laughing like they were old friends. Stella's hands trembled with rage and fear. How had Clara ended up here? How had she gotten so close to Vivian? And most importantly, did Vivian know who Clara really was? Stella watched for a few more minutes, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Clara and Vivian looked so comfortable together, so natural. They talked and smiled like a mother and daughter. "No," Stella whispered to herself. "This is mine." Stella slipped away from the office and headed back to the elevator. She needed time to think. She couldn't let Clara ruin everything she'd built. For 20 years, Stella had been Vivian's only mother. She'd made sure Vivian never remembered her biological mother or asked questions about her past. She'd created a perfect life for Vivian, and now Clara was threatening to destroy it all. That evening, Stella called Vivian. "Hello, Mom," Vivian answered. Her tone was always formal when she spoke to Stella, never warm or affectionate. "Vivian, I stopped by the office today," Stella said. "I noticed you were friendly with some of the cleaning staff." "Oh, you mean Clara?" "Yes, she's wonderful. Really kind and hardworking." Stella's heart raced. "Clara, what's her last name?" "I don't know. I just know her as Clara." "Why do you ask?" "No reason. I just think it's important for a CEO to maintain boundaries with the help." "Mom, Clara's not just the help. She's a good person who's been through hard times. She deserves respect." Stella was shocked by Vivian's defensiveness. "I'm just worried about your reputation, dear. People might find it odd that you're so friendly with a cleaner." "I don't care what people think," Vivian said firmly. "Clara's my friend, and I'm not changing that." After hanging up, Stella sat in her mansion, thinking about what to do. Clearly, Clara was building a relationship with Vivian, and Vivian was protective of her. This was dangerous. The next day, Stella went back to the office during work hours. She marched straight to Vivian's office without knocking. "Mom, what are you doing here again?" Vivian asked, looking up from her computer. "We need to talk," Stella said, closing the door behind her. "About this cleaner you've gotten so attached to, Clara. I think you should fire her." Vivian stared at her mother, shocked. "Fire her? Why?" She does an excellent job and has never caused any problems. She's inappropriate. I've heard she's been bothering you, taking up your time when you should be working. That's not true, Vivian said, standing from her desk. Clara has never bothered me. Our conversations happen during my breaks and are always brief. Still, I think it would be best if she worked somewhere else. No, Vivian said firmly. I'm not firing Clara just because you don't like that she talks to me. Stella was desperate. Vivian, this woman could be dangerous. You don't know anything about her past. Dangerous? Vivian laughed. Clara is one of the kindest people I've ever met. She wouldn't hurt anyone. How can you be so sure? What do you really know about her? Vivian thought for a moment. I know she's kind. I know she's been through hard times. I know she lost her daughter years ago, and it still breaks her heart. And I know she makes me feel safe. Stella's worst fears were coming true. Clara and Vivian were bonding over their shared sense of loss. Clara was filling an emotional void Stella had never been able to fill. Vivian, I'm ordering you to fire her. You can't order me to do anything, Vivian said, her voice rising. I'm the CEO of this company now. I own this company, Stella reminded her coldly, and you trusted me to run it. If you don't trust my decisions, maybe you should find another CEO. Stella was stunned. Vivian had never stood up to her like this. Clara was making her stronger, more independent, exactly what Stella had always feared. Fine, Stella said, trying to sound calm. Keep her if you want, but don't come crying to me when she causes problems. After Stella left, Vivian sat at her desk, confused and upset. Why was her mother so hostile toward Clara? What was she so afraid of? That evening when Clara came to work, Vivian told her about the conversation with Stella. My mother wants me to fire you, Vivian said sadly. Clara felt her heart sink. Fire me? But why? Did I do something wrong? No, you didn't do anything wrong. She just thinks I shouldn't be friends with you. Clara looked down at her hands. Maybe she's right. Maybe it's not proper for someone like me to be friends with someone like you. Someone like you? Vivian asked, confused. I'm just a cleaner. You're important and successful. Your mother might be right. We shouldn't be friends. Clara, look at me, Vivian said firmly. Clara looked up and saw tears in Vivian's eyes. You're one of the most important people in my life, Vivian continued. I don't care what my mother thinks. I don't care what anyone thinks. You make me happier than I've ever been. Clara felt tears well up in her own eyes. You make me happy too, miss. You make me feel whole. Then we'll stay friends no matter what my mother says. But Stella wasn't done fighting. She couldn't fire Clara directly without raising Vivian's suspicions, so she decided to handle the problem another way. 2 days later, Stella waited in the parking lot until she saw Clara leaving work. Then she approached her. Clara, Stella called. Clara turned and saw her walking toward her. Even after 20 years, Clara instantly recognized that cold, beautiful face. Stella, Clara whispered, her voice full of shock and fear. So you remember me? Stella said with a cruel smile. I wondered if prison had damaged your memory. Clara began to tremble. What do you want? I want you to stay away from my daughter. I don't know what you're talking about, Clara said, trying to play innocent. Don't lie to me, Clara. I know you're getting close to Vivian. I know you've been filling her head with your sad stories. I'm just doing my job, Clara said weakly. Your job is to clean offices, not to befriend the CEO, Stella said, stepping closer. I want you to quit this job and leave town tonight. I can't do that, Clara said. This is my only job. I need it to survive. Then let me make this clear, Stella said, her voice menacing. Leave now, or I'll have you arrested again, just like I did 20 years ago, when you tried to steal my daughter. Clara gasped. Stella was threatening her again, just like before. But neither of them knew that Vivian had forgotten her keys and had returned to the office to get them. She was walking through the parking lot when she heard voices. She recognized one as her mother's and wondered who Stella was talking to so late at night. Vivian approached, hiding behind a car to listen without being seen. You sent me to prison for 20 years, Clara said, her voice breaking. I lost everything because I loved my daughter too much. And you'll lose everything again if you don't stay away from Vivian, Stella threatened. Vivian felt her stomach drop. Why was her mother threatening the cleaner? And what did Clara mean about losing her daughter? She doesn't even know who I am, Clara said, tears in her eyes. I'm not trying to hurt her. I just want to be near her. It's all I have left. She's not yours anymore, Stella said coldly. She hasn't been yours since you sold her to me for money. Vivian's world stopped spinning. Sold her? What did that mean? Who had been sold? Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to keep listening. I didn't sell her, Clara sobbed. I thought I was giving her a better life. I thought you'd love her and take care of her. You were wrong about everything, Stella said. You're right. I was wrong, Clara said. But you can't keep her from knowing the truth. She deserves to know her real mother never stopped loving her, never stopped thinking about her. Her real mother? Stella laughed cruelly. Her real mother is the one who raised her, educated her, and made her successful. You're nothing but a woman who gave up her child for money. Vivian couldn't breathe. The words she was hearing were unbelievable, but something deep inside told her they were true. Clara was her biological mother. The woman she talked to every night who made her feel safe and loved was the mother she'd wondered about her whole life. And Stella, the woman she'd called her mother for 20 years, had lied to her about everything. Vivian stayed frozen behind the car, her mind racing. All those conversations with Clara about losing her daughter, all those moments when Clara looked at her with such love, all those times Vivian felt like she'd found something she'd been searching for without knowing it. It all made sense now. Please, Clara said through her tears, let me keep working here. I won't tell her who I am. I won't cause any trouble. I just need to be near her. Absolutely not, Stella said firmly. You leave tonight, or I'll make sure you go back to prison for the rest of your life. You can't keep doing this to me, Clara said, finding her courage. You can't keep destroying my life just because you're afraid. Afraid? Stella laughed. I'm not afraid of you, Clara. You're nothing. You're nobody. You're just a woman who sold her child and now wants to feel better about it. I gave her to you because I thought you'd love her, Clara shouted. But you didn't love her. You just wanted to own her. Vivian's heart shattered as she listened. Her entire life had been a lie. I gave Vivian everything, Stella said coldly. Education, opportunity, success. What could you have given her? Poverty, hunger, a life of struggle? I could have given her love, Clara said softly. Real love. The kind that doesn't come with conditions. Her words hit Vivian like a punch to the chest. She realized Clara was right. Stella had never loved her unconditionally. Every good thing Stella did came with expectations, demands for gratitude and obedience. Vivian couldn't hide anymore. She stepped out from behind the car and walked toward the two women. Is it true? She asked, her voice trembling. Both women turned, shocked to hear her voice. Vivian, Stella said, her face pale. What are you doing here? Clara looked at Vivian with terror. She knew everything was about to fall apart. I asked you a question, Vivian said, looking between the two women. Is it true? Are you my biological mother? She stared directly at Clara. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. She dreamed of this moment for 20 years, but now that it was happening, she was too scared to speak. Don't listen to her, Vivian, Stella said quickly. This woman is disturbed. She's been in prison. She's trying to upset you. Answer me, Vivian said louder, still looking at Clara. Are you my mother? Clara met Vivian's eyes. They were the same eyes she'd looked into when Vivian was 3 years old, the day she gave her away. Yes, Clara whispered. I'm your mother. The words hung in the air like thunder. Vivian felt her legs weaken. Even though she'd overheard the conversation, hearing Clara say it made it real, almost unbearable. You're lying, Stella said desperately. Vivian, don't listen to her. She's just some crazy woman who... Stop talking, Vivian said to Stella, her voice ice cold. She'd never spoken to her adoptive mother like that. Vivian turned to Clara. You gave me up when I was 3 years old. Clara nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Why? Vivian asked. and Clara heard the pain in her voice. Because I was poor and desperate, Clara said, her voice breaking. Your father had died, and I couldn't feed you or keep a roof over your head. Stella promised to give you everything I couldn't. So you sold me, Vivian said, and the words cut like knives. I thought I was saving you, Clara cried. I thought I was giving you a better life. And you, Vivian turned to Stella. You told me my biological mother was dead. Stella's face showed panic. I was protecting you from the pain of knowing she abandoned you. She didn't abandon me, Vivian said slowly, the pieces falling into place in her mind. You took me from her and sent her to prison when she tried to take me back. I had to protect our family, Stella said desperately. She was trying to destroy everything we built together. Everything we built? Vivian's voice grew louder. You mean everything you built? You never asked me what I wanted. You never let me choose. Clara watched the exchange with a mix of hope and fear. Vivian was angry at both of them, and Clara couldn't blame her. Vivian, Clara said softly, I know you must hate me. Don't, Vivian said, raising her hand. Don't tell me what I feel. Vivian looked between the two women who had shaped her life. One had given her life and then given her away. The other had raised her but lied to her for 20 years. When you met me, Vivian said to Clara, did you know who I was? Clara shook her head. No, I didn't. I didn't recognize you. You were so little the last time I saw you, and I didn't know your last name had become Williams. But you felt something, Vivian said. It wasn't a question. Clara nodded. Yes. From the moment we met, I felt something. Like my heart knew you, even if my mind didn't. Vivian remembered feeling the same thing, that inexplicable warmth, the sense of safety she felt around Clara. And you, she turned to Stella, you recognized her right away. Yes, Stella admitted. I tried to protect you from her. Protect me? Vivian's voice was full of disbelief. You sent my biological mother to prison for 20 years. You kept us apart. You lied to me about everything. I gave you the best life, Stella said desperately. Look at what you've become. You're successful, educated, powerful. Would you have had that with her? Vivian looked at Clara, who stood silently, tears in her eyes. Clara looked tired, worn down by years of suffering. Her clothes were old and simple. Her hands were rough from hard work. Then Vivian looked at Stella, with her expensive clothes and jewelry, her perfect makeup and styled hair. Maybe not, Vivian said softly. Maybe I wouldn't have been rich or successful, but maybe I would have been happy. The words hit Stella like a slap. You were happy. I made sure you had everything. Everything except a mother who loved me for who I was, not for what I could achieve, Vivian said. Everything except the truth about where I came from. Stella realized she was losing Vivian, and panic overwhelmed her. Vivian, please, I'm your real mother. I'm the one who raised you, took care of you when you were sick, paid for your education. You did all that, yes, Vivian said, but you did it to create the daughter you wanted, not to love the one you had. Clara couldn't stay silent anymore. Vivian, there's something you need to know. Not a single day has passed in 20 years that I didn't think about you. Not one day. I wondered if you were happy, if you were healthy, if you ever thought of me. I thought of you, Vivian said, looking at Clara, tears in her eyes. I dreamed about you. I wondered if you loved me or if you just didn't want me. I loved you more than my own life, Clara said, her voice full of pain. Giving you up was like ripping out my heart, but I thought you'd be better off without me. Vivian felt something break and heal inside her chest at the same time. Her whole life she'd felt like something was missing. Now she knew what it was. It was the unconditional love of her real mother. Vivian's tears fell as she stepped toward Clara. For a long moment she just stared into the woman's eyes, the same eyes that had looked at her with such strange, inexplicable warmth for months. Then in a voice barely above a whisper she said, Mom. Clara collapsed. Her knees gave out, but Vivian caught her, holding her tightly as sobs shook her frail body. I'm so sorry, Clara cried. I never stopped loving you. Please forgive me." Vivian held her tighter. "There's nothing to forgive. You're my mother. You always have been." Stella's face twisted in panic. "Vivian, you can't mean this. Not after everything I've done for you." Vivian turned to her, her gaze no longer soft but piercing with truth. "You raised me, Stella, but you also stole my life. You lied to me, punished the woman who gave me life, and called it love. That's not love. It's possession." Stella opened her mouth to protest, but the words died in her throat. The authority she'd once held crumbled under the weight of Vivian's rejection. "Go," Vivian said firmly. "You've taken enough from both of us. You don't control me anymore." For the first time, Stella looked small, defeated. Without a word, she turned and walked away, her heels echoing in the garage until her shadow disappeared into the darkness. Vivian turned to Clara, wiping the tears from her mother's cheeks. "Come with me," she said. "No more pain, no more hiding. You're coming home." And for the first time in 20 years, Clara allowed herself to smile through her tears. She fell into her daughter's arms, her heart finally found. They walked out of the garage side by side, not a broken woman and her lost daughter, but a family restored. I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you took away. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.